Morning, everyone. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of Esther Bas Yirmia Cantor, Avram Eliezer ben Shmuel Tzvi Gilbert, Chaya Bas Leib Aryeh Peta, Leah Bas Shimon Meron, Etta Bas Avram Alevi Bina, Tava Tavera Rus Bas Moshe Lyons, Pesach ben Avram Renton from Bas Avram Sampson, Esther Tavera Bas Aaron Brooks, as well as Leah Bas Bible, Harav Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh, Tzivia Bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Shalom ben Yisrael Morris, Tzipora Fegele Bas Ruben Baruch, Shalom ben Elili, ben Bas Bible, Pumish Shana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kela Bela Bas Henoch, Yirmiyahu Yechiel ben Echav Moshe Elias, and Sarah Malka Bas ben Yomen. Good morning to everyone, in particular those that are saying good morning to Michelle, Peter, Paul, David, Carol, Estelle, and Caroline. Good morning to everyone. So we're continuing. Yesterday we spoke about the gate of remembrance, and good morning to Michael and Rachel that have just joined us. Yesterday we spoke about the gate of remembrance and how important it is, and today we want to speak about the gate of forgetfulness, the flip side of the coin. So we have to bear in mind that forgetfulness is something which, generally speaking, is considered a defective trait, right? Because if a person doesn't have an awareness of what they're meant to be doing, why they are here, what the responsibilities are, and they don't recall in terms of their Jewish practice as to what they're meant to do and how they're meant to do things, then they are not going to live a productive, constructive life, right? He says, one who is forgetful must write down all that transpires between him and his friend in order to remember it. We are so quick to be forgetful, right? In terms of when we think about our relationships, right? It's very easy to jump to conclusions and to look at in isolation, right? Blinkered vision. We've spoken about this before, about the way we treat other people, right? So we think about other people and we see something, or they offend us, they hurt us, and then we automatically jump down their throats and we are very, very critical. But have we thought and remembered at that moment all the other occasions when they were such a loyal and dear friend, how much they gave to this relationship, right? Very often we forget those other aspects of our relationships, and therefore we look in isolation, and that causes a disconnect. So he goes on to say, one who is forgetful, he gives very practical advice, must provide reminders for himself and must erect formidable fences so that the person doesn't forget his Torah obligations, right? As it says in the Shema, Rak Yisham Elecha Shmo Es Nafshecha, sorry, not in the Shema, in Devarim, Rak Yisham Elecha Shmo Nafshecha Ma'od. You should guard yourself against forgetfulness, right? But one should employ the trait of forgetfulness. Listen to this one. One should employ the trait of forgetfulness to forget the mitzvahs which a person has done. Because if he sets his heart to remembering the mitzvahs and his good deeds, and to forgetting his evils and errors in his machinations, he will be righteous in his eyes and will not repent. So isn't that interesting? When it comes to the good stuff that we have done, right, Richard? Good morning. When it comes to the good stuff that we have done, then a person is meant to forget it. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't look at today and say, well, I've done, I'm in a comfortable position. I know I've done plenty of good stuff in the past. That you're meant to forget. That you're meant to ignore. You're meant to see every moment as if this is my first and my last moment, and therefore I have to make a difference. I have to make a contribution. I have to do a mitzvah, right? That is the way we are meant to see it. And a person also, he says, so these are the positives, that a person also should forget when a person causes offense, as we already mentioned, and pardon him, right? And while praying, he says, a person should cause everything in the world to be forgotten from his heart and summon up to his thought the loving kindness of the Blessed One. So very often when we are caught in prayer, what do? We all of a sudden remember we have long lists in our memory of the demands and the requests and the wants. But in reality, he's saying that we should forget, in terms of our relationship with God, all the stuff that's come before us, all the things that we think we are entitled to and we need. So there really are these two sides to the coin. On the one hand, remembrance, and the other hand, forgetfulness. So let's think about it for a couple of minutes. When would it be good to remember? So appreciation only comes from a place of remembrance. Okay, I remember the good, the kindness, the compassion that you showed me, be it God or be it any other person. Okay, the forgetfulness, we are saying, generally speaking, is something that is a bad trait, a defective trait, and therefore we do not want to. We want to find ways, as Richard suggested, but seriously, we should find ways and strategies to make sure that we remember. We would be amazed at what we can remember, right? If we put our minds to it, if it's important to us, we remember what we consider important. If it's important, we can remember it. So that's one thing. And therefore, we'll be able to be in a position, however old we are, to make sure that we recall and we are aware of who we are, what we're trying to achieve, our responsibilities. What does it mean to be Jewish? What does it mean to make blessings and all the other obligations that we have in any given situations? Having said that, he said the flip side was that when it comes to forgetfulness, that there is positives, and that we shouldn't bask in our own glory, but rather we should forget our good deeds and accomplishments of the past and just ignore them, forget them, and now focus on the here and now. So that's forgetfulness. I'm going to start with the gate of silence because we have time. And the gate of silence basically is where we just sit in silence. No, I'm joking. The gate of silence. One of the things you'll see that I've written in this week's Parsha sheet is the fact that I think it was on the Tim Ferriss show, that Lord Sachs, Rav Lord Sachs, Zichron Livracha, was asked. He was asked about if he had only $100. I think they did this to all those that they interviewed, and they asked him, "What would you buy? What would be a useful thing if you're on a desert island? What would you take with you?" I know what Adam would take with him. That's a lead shirt. But anyone else right-minded, what would they take with them? So Lord Sachs said that he would take a pair of background noise cancelling headphones, right? You can get these new headphones, the more expensive ones, the ones that we don't treat ourselves, that are noise cancelling. So they cancel out all the background noise so you can focus on the sound of the music that you're listening to. And he said, to the surprise of Tim Ferriss, that's what I would take with me. And he mentioned that he would utilize them, or he thinks they are vital in the generation in which we live, in which there is so much noise around us. It's a deafening crescendo of different conflicting sounds and noises and voices. And it's very hard for us to hear our own voice and to be in touch with ourselves. And therefore, silence is golden, I was always told. But it's true that very often we feel uncomfortable being with ourselves or being with one other person. We've got to fill the void with noise, with sound, with just saying things. And generally speaking, so when you go to a great person, in fact, you don't speak first. You wait till you are spoken to. If that's true of royalty with a queen, one has to wait. It's etiquette to wait until she speaks to you. And if she doesn't speak, then you remain in silence. And it's also true of some of our greatest sages. And sometimes it can be, I've been there, it can be very uncomfortable where they are sitting and they are just sitting in silence. And we're not used to it, but they are. And we have to see the benefit of that silence. So silence of speech. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, I grew up of all my days among the sages, and I found nothing better for oneself than silence. And so King Solomon also said, even a fool who keeps quiet is accounted wise. The wise man says, when I speak, I will regret what I have said. When I am silent, I will not regret it. And if I will regret silence once, I regret speech many times. Think about what we just said. When I speak, I will regret what I have said. And when I am silent, I will not regret it. If I will regret silence once, I will regret speech many times. Many of the many of the things that we recite in the confession are about speech, the misuse and abuse of speech, the things that we say. We speak about the prattling lips, the prattling speech that we have, where we just want to say things, and the more that we say without thought, the more likely it is that it is going to eventually cause damage and harm by what we say, because we're not always conscious of what we are saying. Our rabbi said the two advocates stood before Hadrian, one advocating speech and the other advocating silence. Anyone know when Hadrian lived? Anyone can give us a date? The king said to the advocate of speech, "What is your case?" He replied, "My master, if not for speech, how could kings rule in the world? How could ships set out to sea? How could the dead be shown loving kindness? How could brides be praised? How could business be conducted in the world?" Immediately the king Hadrian said, "You've spoken very well." He then said to the advocate of silence, "How could you have praised silence?" He immediately arose to speak, whereupon the advocate of speech arose and struck him. The king asked, "Why did you strike him?" He replied, "My master, I taught with mine, for I taught with speech on behalf of speech. But this one was going to teach with mine for his." In other words, he was going to make a case for silence with speech. And the advocate for speech was saying, "That's my domain. You can't defend speech. You can't defend silence with speech." That is why I struck him. The other countered, "But did not King Solomon advocate thus? God did not say that one should sit in silence like a mute. But in Mishlei, King Solomon said, 'In an abundance of words, offense will not be lacking, and he who spares his lips is wise.' That is, he who refrains from speaking against his friend." So we're going to stop there, but the critical point is that we see that speech is meant to be utilized and meant to be, if we sanctify our lips and we make sure that we use it in the right way, then it is a potent force in the world, be it for prayer or for complimenting, for taking care of other people. There are many, many good uses of speech, as we can imagine. Nothing, as we said, is wholeheartedly good or bad, but it is something that should be used sparingly, so that when we do use it, we use it in the right way. We're going to continue now with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even when I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adonai lamim zacho es nishmais. Esther Bas Miriam Yirmiyahu Cantor, Aram Eliezer Ben Shmuel Tzvi Gilbert, Chaya Bas Leib Aryeh Peter, Leah Bas Shimon Meiron, Eta Bas Harav Rama Levi Baina, Tova Devora Rus Bas Moshe Lyons, Esther Abram Renton, from Bas Abram Samson, Esther Devora Bas Aaron Brooks, Shalach Uriel sorry, we forgot some names. Leah Bas Bible Harav Yaakov Tzvi Ben David Aryeh, Tzvi Bas Mordechai, from Ben David Slavin, Shalom Ben Israel Morris, Tzipra Fekele Bas Ruben Baruch, Shalom Ben Eli Ben Bas Pai, Ubrum Shashan Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kayla Bela Bas Hanach, Yirmiyahu Yechia Ben Ochav Ben Moshe Eliezer, Salmak of the Spin Yomich, Uri Lamam, Veganeden Teimenu Chasam, Malachim Badrachamim, Yasi Rein Beseisa Kanaf Avli Alamim, Yesos Chaysa Shosamagna, Nachlasam, Yanuchu Bishlamish Kavam, Ben Amar, Amen. Long life wishes to all. Lastly, Refuah Shlema for all those that are unwell. Mishnah I've seen Rav Mitzvah Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivach Repes Chayilim Bavo Shanu Mispalim Bavo Ram Bis Chazak Kadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachum Aleihem Lachem Alaposam Vishlach Lehem Fushlim and Shemaim Lachol Arem Besos Jachul Yisrael Refuah Sanefesh V'Sagav Hashvagas Magarev and Amar Amen. Wishing everyone a great day. Keep safe.